there's two big things that we're going to be doing in this video. The first big thing is fixing this row or this grid right here so it's not all mashed up together. And then secondly, we're going to make these clickable. And when we click on them, we're going to be taken to a new page where we can actually see the workout data for that day. And so to do that, we're going to be creating a new route, which takes some route params using a React router. But before we do either of those things, there's a small fix we need, and that is with the create workout screen. So you'll notice it is a long list of stuff, and if I click here to start the timer and start scrolling, this thing just randomly starts floating in the middle here. So we're going to fix that real quick. So if I come over to my current workout, what we're going to do is we're just going to wrap our button or everything in a scroll view besides the timer. So I'm going to say scroll view and wrap it all the way here. And so this is a React Native element that just makes things scrollable. And we'll immediately notice we have a scroll bar here now. And as we scroll, this is visible still. But you'll notice it's blocking the button at the bottom. If we click on that. So we may want to add like just a little space at the bottom so it fits. So I guess if we go to content, inset, is that that might be the right thing, but I was just planning on doing content container style and then setting it like a margin bottom, and like I don't remember how big we made it, like 50 or something, so that way it's pushed up a little bit and you can still see that there. So sweet. The other thing is you'll notice like there's a little bit of spacing right here because the scroll bar is we have some padding on the view and not in the scroll bar. So what I can do is say scroll view. I guess scroll container is a better name for it. And we're going to just move the padding to the scroll container. I'm also going to take the margin bottom and put that in here as well. And pass that to the content style. And that should have an R there. And you'll notice I'm using the content container style on the scroll view as opposed to the style. This is something to actually access the content or the view that is inside of the scroll view. So that is on purpose. And so now we have the scroll bar there. Cool. So, all right, let's jump into the main thing we're going to do today. So the first thing was at this home page over here, fixing up the grid that we made. So someone mentioned possibly doing like CSS grid here. And I think this is like an excellent use case for CSS grid, but unfortunately React Native does not have CSS grid. All they have is Flexbox, so that's our only thing. Now there are some grid libraries, but basically they just wrap using Flexbox, so we're gonna have to deal with this ourselves. All right, so with that said, the first thing that I want to do is just wrap our, in workout history, wrap our cards in a view. And what I'm going to say here is I need to move the key since this is the outermost view. And we're going to create a new style for it. So styles dot, I guess we'll call this card container. And so what's going to be inside this card container is I'm going to say first off a flex of 1. So what that's going to do is it's going to have it expand across the whole half. So flex 1 on this one, flex 1 on this one, it's going to split it 50-50. Next thing, I'm just going to add some padding, say padding 10. That way they're a little spaced out and we can actually start seeing some cards forming. So nice. So this looks a little bit better. And then maybe we want to do something besides 2 because these are not that wide of cards. So we can go to our I%2 and we can increment this how many columns that we want. So in this case, let's do 3 columns and we have 3 of these. Now you'll notice that because we're using Flexbox, these are flexing all the remaining space. So here this is doing a 50-50 split here. So what we really need to do is kind of add some placeholders in this case, I think is the easiest way to solve this. So the way I'll usually do this is if we go to where we're rendering this row, I'm just going to check the length of the row. So if the length is less than 3 items, then we know we need to have an extra view. Otherwise, we can just render null. And so this view is just going to be a placeholder. So we're going to create a styles.placeholder. and we'll come back to our style up here. And first thing we're going to do is just say flex 1 on it. And you'll notice that's going to have it there. And you know what? We're going to apply the same things as the card container. So instead of using placeholder, we can just reuse that style. But anyway, you'll notice that we'll at least push it over a little bit. And now to match the padding, we're going to have to use the same thing as card container and set a padding of 10 on it. But since it's a duplicate, I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to say styles.cardContainer and reuse that style. And now you'll notice we have basically there's an invisible placeholder right here that you can't see. If we set like a background color, you'd be able to see it. So like background color pink, right? You'd be able to see there's one right here. And let's use margin instead of padding, and it'll be even clearer. All right, and you can see here is our little pink placeholder there. Anyway, we can put that back. All right, so this is the gist of this. I also thought we could have a ton of workouts in the history, so I figured it'd be a good place to use a flat list. That's a component in React Native that is good for lists that are long. So we're gonna have to kind of think about how we have this current setup a little bit, because we can't, in this particular format, render the flat list well. So what I'm thinking is to reorganize this a tad. Instead of like making a rows of JSX, we're going to create a slightly new data type here. So I'm going to comment this out. And so what I'm going to do instead is our rows are going to be still a 2D array. But I'm now going to create a new data type here. Inside of it, I'm just going to say the date, which is going to be a string. And then I'm going to say exercises, which is just the array of current exercises. So this is kind of a similar data structure to what we had before, a 2D array. But now instead of having JSX, we're going to be rendering we're not rendering, but we're going to store objects. The objects have a date, which maps to this, and a value, which maps to these exercises. So to match it, the names, I'm just going to say date and exercises here. Exercises. There we go. I have trouble spelling that word. And then we're going to put this here, date exercises. And same thing goes here. And the reason why we're reformatting it like this is just a little bit easier of a data structure to pass into a flat list. All right, so we'll come down here, and I'm going to say flat list. So first thing that I'm going to do on this is pass in the data, which I'm going to have rows. And two things just hit me that I forgot to do. One, we may have to have 2 placeholders. If the length is only 1, then we're going to have to render 2 placeholders. So we can do it like this. So if the length is 2, this will be false and we'll only render 1 placeholder. But if we have 1, both of these are going to be true, and it's going to render both. The other thing is I brought a tab up for it because I wanted to show you guys. On the scroll view that we made, we need to set this keyboard should persist taps. What this does is sometimes in scroll lists you have trouble tapping on things, and we want to tap on the items in that scroll list, so we can get around that problem by passing in always. And I'll link the docs if you want to see the other options you can pass to this. And this allows you to tap and have it work correctly. But anyway, back with the flat list, we're passing in our rows. And with a flat list, let's import this. And if you didn't see that, flat list is coming from React Native itself. So there is a prop on here called key extractor. So what key extractor does is it takes one of the items. So in this case, I'm just going to say item. And if we look at what the item is, we can hover over it and see. You'll notice this is an array of dates/exercises. And we need to return a string that is a unique key. So I think what I want to use for the unique key is the dates. And I want something like, if I have 3 dates, I think I want to have something like this. So date 1, and then like a space, date 2 and date 3, all in a string. So we have an array, so I think a good way to take that array and turn it into a string is to use the reduce function. So we can say item.reduce. So this is an array function. The first parameter is a function that takes the previous value and the current value, and then we have to return something. And then the second value of this is our initial state, which in this case is an empty string. So how the reduce function works is it's going to call the function that you pass in for each item. And each item it's going to pass in for the current value, and then previous value is going to be either the initial value or whatever was returned before. So what that means is we're going to say previous value plus, put a space between it, the current value. So all that's going to do is it's going to make a string that looks like this, and it's going to append the 3 dates together. And then lastly, we need to render the item for this. And this is really what the row is going to look like. So we can copy what we have here, up here. And then this is going to be item is the key to access, and you'll see same thing as we were dealing with before. Now we don't have to actually pass a key to this because that's what key extractor does. All right, so we're going to keep this, and all we're going to do here is kind of a mix of what this and what we did up here. So I'm going to uncomment this and bring it down here. So to render this, all we did was loop through the exercises. So here I'm going to say item.map, and for each one we're going to render this. And so here I can say date and exercises. So the key is going to be a date, the header is going to be date as well, and this is going to be exercises. And we just need to import that. So we don't need this. We're going to need these two placeholder things here still, because this is we're still going to need placeholders because we're going to have odd numbers out or whatever. All right, so item and item. Give that a save. So I don't think we'll see anything different here. And let's see, did I mess something up pretty badly? I think this looks good here. We don't need this anymore. I think that could have been what's causing. Yeah, that looked like it was what's causing the problem. And this is that same two children with the same key, object, object, object. That's because I didn't say current value dot date. Okay. So current value is, if we hover over it, we can even see, is the object. It's the date, which is string, and the exercises we have access to. So we want to use the date to pin that. And then previous value, again, is whatever we have on there, and you can hover over it. You'll know it's just a string. It's going to be this, and then it's going to be whatever we return before it, as it kind of maps over each item. All right, so you'll notice it looks the exact same, but is now in a flat list, meaning it will work better with long lists of data. So last thing that I want to do is make these clickable. So, and basically take you to a new screen when you click on it. And I'm just going to get rid of this comment because it's not relevant anymore. Get rid of this as well. Okay. So to make these clickable, we can go over to our card, and we're going to take an optional prop called onPress. And we use the question mark to say it's question possibly undefined. And here we're going to say onPress. So if they pass in a onPress, we're going to use a touchable opacity instead of a regular view. That way it has a nice on-click. And we can still use the same styles.card. So it's going to look like a card, but now it's clickable. All right, so now in our workout history over here, I can pass an onPress to this guy right here. Or actually, I guess because our history card underneath uses a card right here, so I guess it would work like that. So I guess I can just use the header, which is a date. I was just thinking in my head, I guess we want to pass the onPress here. I think we want to add an onPress here though. I was thinking whether we want to put the logic in the history card or move it up, and I think I want to move it up to put it here instead of putting the logic of how the changing of page works. So in that case, we're going to pass a prop down called onPress. And we're going to pass that in here. So now in our workout history, we're going to define what onPress does here. In this case, it's going to say history.push. And let's see if we have, yep, we have history imported. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to /workout/ and we're going to do the current date. So I'm going to go like this and make this a bracketed function. And so it lets me save and reformat it. So what I want is I would like to have the year here, then the month, then the day of the workout. So to do that, we have the date and it is separated by dashes. So I'm going to say date.split by the dash. And so here we're going to say parts.0 for the year, and then the month, and then the day. Sorry, this should be 1, this should be 2. Okay, so we haven't actually created that route, but we can go ahead and click on this, and it should take us to a different page, and it should have the slash on it, so something did not work. So I'm just going to see if this onPress is getting called. Pressed. Alright, and it is not being called, so let's just go one deeper to the history card, this, and then our card, click on that. Oh, I forgot to pass onPress to the touchable opacity here. Alright, so let's click on this. Should take us to 2018-11-18. 2018-11-18, awesome. So it's going to be actually really easy to render what goes here. So let's first create the route for it. So we're going to go over to our routes, create a new one here. I'm going to say /workout/year. And by the way, this is how you do variables in React Router. So this is a variable in the URL. The year, the month, and the day. And this is going to render the current workout component. So in our current workout now, we're going to take some things from the URL. So now to tell React Router that we have some things that we expect in the URL, we're going to say year string, month string, and day string. Now these may not be there if someone comes from the current workout. So if we go back, to our routes, you'll notice that we are rendering the current workout both on a route that looks like this and a route that looks like that. So it's possible that someone came here with no route params on there. So that's why I did undefined at the top here, because they can possibly be undefined. And so we can have access to those variables by saying match and then params. And then there's going to be a day, a month, and a year. And then here, now I'm just going to see if this throws an error. Okay, good. I didn't know if it was going to complain. I didn't know if it was going to complain because we're destructuring these and they're undefined on the current. Ooh, we didn't go to current workout /current workout. There we go. Okay, yeah, I didn't complain because the params are going to be undefined and we're destructuring them here, so I didn't know if it was going to be upset about that, but it looks like it's okay. So I'm going to make a variable is current workout. So we could rename this thing because this really is just the display for the workout. It may not be the current workout. So it's the current workout if there's not a year and there's not a month and there's not a day. And so basically how this works now is we're going to do a check here. So we're going to say is current workout. If it is, we're going to map through the current exercises. Otherwise, we're going to get the day in history. So we're going to say date key is equal to year dash month dash day, and then we're going to look this up in our history. So we're going to say root store dot workout store dot history, and then use the date key. And then we need to wrap this in parentheses. So we're going to pick whether we're doing the current exercise or pick the exercises at a given day, and we're going to map through those. So just to give you an idea, here's all the exercises on this day. Let's try this day, and we can see we have just these 3. So nice. The other thing is when I click on a workout, actually that's good. It should update automatically. I think really the only last thing is when we save. We can get rid of this random day. When we save the workout, we don't need to clear the current exercises if we're doing a day in history. So is current workout, we're going to do this logic, else we're going to just save the day in history. Actually, we don't even have to save it because it's automatically going to be updating it for us. So that's awesome. So only if we are working with a current workout do we need to actually save it in history. Otherwise, we're going to be directly mutating the history, I believe, and there's no need to actually update it. And so what I mean by directly mutating is when I hit this, right, 2, it's going to actually save this. And if I come back over here, which day was I even working on? Was it this one? Yeah, it's going to remember the 2 in history. And there's actually no need to hit save. It's going to save, just goes back pretty much. It's going to remember that day. So we can make changes to the days in history now, and we can see the values. All right, so that is all I wanted to cover in this video. We covered a ton. Quick recap is we went over fetching basically different workouts based on the date we have in the URL. And we use this to look up the key. And I can console log this date key. So all we do is we take that, and we can close this. We don't need that, right? So in this case, 12:13, we look up that workout in our history object, and then we display those exercises that we know the user did. We even let the user update the days in history if they want to as well. Anyway, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching.